Hello. You're listening to Failfection. This is Joel Delgado. I'm your host. We're going to go ahead and kick it off with today's quote. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Now, this is a guy that really doesn't need any introduction. His name's Winston Churchill. You guys may know him. Prime Minister of the UK for a little while. And he did lead Britain to victory in the Second World War. So, Winston S. Churchill, great guy. That was actually one of my favorite historic figures to learn about while I was in school. So, definitely good reading if you go ahead and check out some more of his quotes. Yeah, so moving on, the Shed Some Light segment, it's pretty interesting today. It's about sneakers, believe it or not. So, Foot Locker had actually invested $100 million into the GOAT app. Now, if you don't know what the GOAT app is, I did partake in, the sneakerhead extravaganza that went on while I was in high school. So I was aware of the sneaker culture, if you want to call it. I'm doing little air quotations. But the sneaker culture in itself, a lot of people don't know, but it's very, very lucrative. Now, a lot of people are like, hell, they're just sneakers, So you buy a pair of sneakers, right? Now, any pair of sneakers could be limited. Any pair of sneakers could be not limited, But the limited pairs of sneakers, they obviously sell out quicker, right? Those are your holiday releases. Those are your special releases. You guys probably have seen people lining outside, sneaker stores in your city. But essentially what this means is that Foot Locker is going to take over. They're going to become a monopoly in their own realm, I guess. But you got to think, Foot Locker is the leading sneaker retailer in the United States and probably in the world, honestly. But in the United States, Foot Locker hasn't beat. So any other company, they can't really mess with Foot Locker at this point financially because they just invested $100 million into a company that resells the sneakers that they sell. So if you're understanding that, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around, but a pair of sneakers that retail, MSRP, go for $220. You can sell those same sneakers a couple of days later, a couple of months later, a year later, for, I've seen something crazy upwards to $6,000. And that's one of the more rare shoes, so you're not going to see that every day or every release of a sneaker. But if you think about it, it's so insane to wrap your mind around. But I've been telling people this for a little while now. It's just something so hard to jump on and get on the bandwagon because it's just kind of hard to believe. You know what I mean? You're not going to be able to get something for, a very little price and then, sell it for, 300-400% profit. So I definitely understand why people are so hard-headed, if you will, or they're kind of just not really sure. They're not really sure about it. So it's crazy to see that Foot Locker did that. Now, I don't know the exact, agreement. I don't know the deal. They didn't really have too much besides they invested $100 million, but I am thinking of so many different possibilities that they can actually go through with this. But also, Foot Locker's stock eventually should go up. This is something that's huge. This is Foot Locker making so much more money. They are selling sneakers twice, essentially. And the second time they're selling them, they're getting, I'd say, 2 to 3 times what the sneaker cost for those more exclusive sneakers, for those more limited sneakers. I think it's insane, but I definitely felt like you guys should know about it. Do a little bit more reading. It's a cool idea. It's crazy that they invested that much money into them, so they're actually going to get something back out of it, and it's going to be very beneficial for both parties, I'm assuming. It just makes sense. So that is the Shed Light segment. Wherever you're listening to this, we do hope you guys go ahead and reach out comment. Make sure you guys are interacting with us so we can give you guys the best content available. Now, let's keep it moving. Yesterday we did touch on just getting stuff done, actually getting that idea out there that you guys have, that brilliant, that genius idea that you guys have, right? Whether it be a business, whatever, even if it's not a brilliant idea and you just want to just step your foot in the retail business or whatever, you want to start a business, this is something that a lot of people are intimidated by, and they feel like a lot of it is not really approachable as far as they're concerned. Now, it is very, very doable. Anything that you want to get done, it's very doable. Now, there's a couple of things that you're going to need to start your brand or your pretty much your social media identity or your brand's identity, right? And it's a name, it's a catchy name, it's something that people are going to want to hear when they do hear it. Makes them feel good, something like that. Now, not necessarily a name could be a name, but the logo, your logo, that is something that will put people off or on. Like, your logo is something that is pretty much going to be the face of your brand, your company's identity. So you want to put a decent amount of money into that without breaking the bank, right? And now, we were talking about that budget thing. There's a budget thing. So if you're able to afford $200 for a logo, you're able to afford $200 for a logo. That's cool. Good on you. Now, if you're able to afford $5 for a logo, you're able to get that done. Now, the $200 logo, you might have some more custom work done. That freelancer or that person, doing your logo might be a little bit more advanced. They actually might be able to create things, right? A lot of these people that do make these logos on the cheaper end, they do use templates. So that's something that you have to be mindful of and be aware when you are shopping around, because that is something that you want to look for. And you could pretty much tell if every logo kind of looks the same, if they kind of have the same blocking style, not necessarily the same font or art style, but if they're almost in the same, if there's not really much variation in each of the freelancers' designs, you can tell that it is definitely a template. So you want to go ahead and be mindful of that and just look. Definitely shop around. Do not see a price, see $5 and say, oh my God, this is so cheap, I'm gonna go ahead and do it, because there are options. You have multiple cheap options out there, so definitely look around. Now, past the logo, you're gonna want to set some things up, right? You want to set some things up for the future, not necessarily do right now, but you do want to create milestones for yourself in the future, right? So you want to somehow set up your goals. Make sure you have a list, right? Now, something tangible, something you could look at, something you could refer back to. Now, when you're looking into creating a brand or creating an identity or whatever, you're going to go ahead and create that logo. You're going to go ahead and establish yourself. What are you doing, right? Get your, do a little bit of research into, your customer base. Like, who is going to be your consumer? Who is going to be, like, you have to market towards them. And that's where social media comes in. Now that you have your logo, you're able to go ahead and present yourself on social media. Now, your social media presence is very, very important, and it's very difficult to get it up and going. So what I suggest doing is starting off small, following a lot of little pages, definitely contacting a lot of people, letting them know a little bit about yourself. There's going to be a lot of legwork, but it is worth it in the long run, because it is something that a lot of companies had to do to start, you know what I mean? But a lot of companies also didn't have these outlets of freelancing services. So Fiverr and Upwork, again, amazing websites. You're able to do all the things that I'm talking about right now on Fiverr or Upwork for like a crazy fraction of the cost that these other companies had to get up and get started with. You know what I mean? These companies had budgets of like, $50,000 to $100,000 strictly for website branding, advertisements, all that stuff. and not even physical advertisements. I'm talking like $100,000 would get them everything that they need, and then web advertisements, because web advertisements are honestly taking over. Those are the that's something that us as a consumer see the most, because everybody does have an electronic, everybody does have social media, and that's where a lot of those ads get placed. So, big companies are doing it with a lot. You can do it with a little, and it is very, very manageable. It's very doable. Now, using social media to garner attention, to start the next topic, it's hard, right? It's really hard, but there is a little trick to it. You have to be persistent. You have to be consistent. That's something that a lot of people do see and they love. That content that you're putting up frequently, you're putting up daily, you're putting up things for people to look at. That is something that a lot of consumers and a lot of people, viewers and listeners, they want to see that. So I've came to know that, and I've learned that throughout the time that I've been doing this and trying to get this started. And it's real hard. Our following isn't big yet, but we're growing, and we do hope to see more and more people start listening and start joining the movement, because this is something very big, and I do feel like it can be insane in the near future. So definitely become a part of the Failfection movement. It's fun, it's good, it's a good way to think, it's a good mindset, and I do feel like a lot of people will enjoy their time spent listening to our podcast and our content. So we're going to go ahead and talk about Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Now, I know we're going on a tangent about products being made, but this is something that I feel like our listeners should hear, because I know there's just a ridiculous amount of people with a crazy idea that hasn't been put down on paper yet. And that's insane to me. I feel like at least it needs to get put down on paper, because it can be tangible for somebody else to use. It can be tangible for you to use in the future. You just have to write it down. You have to get it out there. You have to tell somebody about it. Definitely keep it low if you know that it's something huge and you want to, execute on it. So Kickstarter and Indiegogo, they're essentially websites that they're almost like Y Contributor and websites or and companies like that. So Kickstarter and Indiegogo are essentially a platform for you to get that attention, to get that money, to get that initial startup money, because they are startup companies. They will help you garner that attention that you do need. So there's been a crazy amount of companies made and pretty much assisted to the top by Indiegogo and Kickstarter. So you have to think, if they could do it, you can do it. And let me tell you, if you just take a little peek, if you take a gander of what they have on Kickstarter and Indiegogo, let me tell you, you will be very, very confident shortly after that visit, because there is things on those websites that you feel like aren't very good, and it's bad to speak down on somebody that or somebody's product, but you look at it and you know that there can be something else. You know what I mean? Something doesn't have to be made, and then it has a ridiculous amount of funding behind it, and it's because they have created an experience. They've created a logo. They've created everything they need. They strategically made something that garnered so much media attention and people just wanting their item, wanting their service, whatever the case may be. But they did something to garner a ridiculous amount of media attention, money, and it's so crazy. It's so crazy to me. But a lot of these things aren't impossible for you to get done. These are things that you're able to get done, and here at Failfection, we can help you, step your foot in the door. We could at least get those creative juices flowing while you're listening to our channel. Definitely go ahead and, start Googling, start opening a little tab, and, start Googling some of the things that we're talking about. Go ahead and start peeking into what we feel is important. And let me know if it works out for you. Comment. Let us know. We love hearing your feedback. I want to hear your feedback. That's something that I have no problem with commenting.